Hello, my darlings. Hello, my little fake computer people. My name's Eric. You can call me Irk. I worked on The Sims for 5+ years back in the 90s and the early 2000s. Some of you might know who I am already, but to others, I'm just a video game guy who worked on video games and did video game stuff with video games. Artist, animator, designer, what have you. I do whatever I'm needed to do. So, generalist, animator type person. I ended up working at EA testing animation software because I have an animation degree. Then I ended up going to 3DO and working a route from animator through to animation lead, then to art director on certain projects that were doomed because Trip Hawkins needed a bunch of things because he was going to make the next big thing. And then the next big thing somehow ended up in Microsoft's lap. They fixed it up a little bit and then called it the Xbox. But anyway, none of those games saw the light of day. The only one like that I worked on was a little bit of Army Men at the beginning and that. So, all right. So, after working at 3DO, I worked on a Disney game that never saw the light of day, which was an Aladdin game. But then this came up. I got hired to work on The Sims. Simultaneously, a couple different people said, hey, we need someone to do animation. Eric is looking for a job. And so my friend Lee talked to a producer at Electronic Arts and said, well, we just bought Maxis. We need to have a guy work on this project that Will Wright's working on. And so they talked and they thought about me. At the same time, a headhunter was already putting my resume on someone's desk. So the headhunter got paid. And that was good because it helps when people get paid. Anyway, of that time and the Flickr account I have, where I dumped a bunch of these images, this one on the screen right now is the one that gets the most attention, the most questions asked. Usually they ask things like, why is it so green? What is it? Where did it come from? What does it mean? Who am I? Who are all you people? And those questions, the latter ones don't usually get answered by me, but this is what we used to help people understand what we were trying to go for as far as the environment, the interactability on The Sims, the original The Sims. It had other names, but The Sims is what got released. So here we are. We were doing something. We wanted the back end of a Victorian house or apartment building, and we wanted it to feel like you could walk in there and just live, and you wouldn't feel uncomfortable, and you'd be able to give your Sims everything they needed as far as interaction, ability to move around, and basically just live the high life. So this was a project that was done at the behest of the producers and the designers, so we could definitely have something to point at and say, like this. Very soon afterwards, we had most of these things built except for the 45-degree walls that you could put anything on. In any case, let me go through this. It was a design task that was given over to me, Jamie Becker, somewhat Eric Chin, and these were people who were also modelers, but because I was the animation dude, I was also posing the characters and getting things together. Since I'd already been doing art direction stuff at a previous job, I took over this Photoshop document and we just started rendering stuff and planting it in its proper place. Now, it went through different iterations. The original iteration was just trying to get things together. And this is from 3D Studio Max. Basically, you can tell, based upon how the stairs were here, we were just throwing stuff in and trying to get it to work. These are very simple sash windows that are kind of not in the Victorian vein, but were things that we would want for our more simple builds someday anyway. this quickly moved to something else that definitely had a better, higher ceilinged feel, more lived in. Here's the queen size bed I ended up building, so that Don Hopkins and I could have something to try and get the Sims in and out of without too much trouble once we'd gotten the original single bed worked out. For people who don't know much about video games of this type, you basically have people walking around and the ground is either gridded out or is a semblance of some sort of grid, so that you're putting the Sims or the what have yous in and out of these things. So it took a while to get this thing, which was like, what, 1.5 meters long and 2 meters wide, or no, that's hard to say, 3 meters by 2 meters or something like that. 3 game units by 2 game units. So we could get people to mount into it and chase each other around the covers, having their tickle fight, because as has been stated before on other people's vlogs, etc., the Sims, once they got in the bed, they weren't moving. They were just stuck underneath, staring at each other usually, especially when it came to things like the hot tubs. They were just blowing bubbles at each other. There may have been weird sound effects and rolling waters, boiling, roiling waters, but they were just under the water staring at each other because they were so either in love or mystified as to why this other person was in their hot tub. So anyway, we went through different iterations. We solidified some design choices, broke things and unbroke them to try and get a good feel, to try and get it feel lived in and populated by little tiny humanish things. We also made an exterior, though it doesn't show up in our other rendering there, just because we wanted to get a certain level of completeness and have people feel like, yeah, I would want to walk out there during a party with my beer and my cigarette and talk with someone I don't know about something, weighty or frivolous. Anyway, so you can see we started pulling things together, spoofing in foliage, spoofing in more living items, and then eventually we broke it down into something that looks a lot like what we would release eventually. So during this time, we had made a switch over from being a bunch of men in a faraway place, sort of a skunkworks area, and we had brought in a really excellent producer named Connor Ryan, with 2 great designers, Claire Curtin and Roxy Wlashenko, and they basically humanized the game, made it so it wasn't just about eating pizza out of a pizza box on the floor, and using the bathroom or not using the bathroom and having a mess. In this case, it was moving towards something really big and something beautiful. A lot of this stuff ended up in the final game, like these chairs, this Audrey Hepburn Breakfast at Tiffany's style bathtub couch. Everyone in the 90s who wanted to feel like they were important had a really big rear projection television and a really cool stereo that was connected to it like a home theater. But we did have a very eclectic taste initially, or should I say, we had a very eclectic set of assets to show folks like what's possible and what might be interesting and how people can just decorate the way they want. So we had these vintage style Art Deco chairs, a interesting interpretation of a boomerang coffee table, some weird lamps and interior object art. But you can see like the consistency of like wood and its temperature, etc., wouldn't be addressed until later on when we were making things like House Party, but especially Hot Date, and then I think we hit our high water mark in Vacation when we had all these wood patterns that looked like they were weathered the way they would be weathered outdoors in their vacation lands and inside in their well-oiled cabins, and the snow had a real sense of light passing through it, etc. But for what we did this time, putting it together in a Photoshop document, putting in drop shadows on things and making it live, it was a real success. I hope you enjoyed this rambling on my part, me talking into this tribble. And the next thing up, I think, is going to be a shorter video talking about the legend of the dirty barbecue from Live and Large. All right, my fellow Sims, have a beautiful day, have a beautiful life, and keep that spinny green thing over your head as much as possible.